Wong with news from here in Taiwan and around the world. Taiwan has been racing to expand its drone capabilities, drawing lessons from the war in Ukraine as it shifts toward a more asymmetric defense strategy. But lawmakers remain divided over how much to invest in drone procurement. As Alan Liu reports, a key spending bill could go to a vote as soon as Friday.
Recent military exercises featured these simulated strikes against targets along Taiwan's south coast, centering the growing role of drones in the country's defense. But in the capital, debate continues over extra funding for purchasing drones and their components. The cabinet has proposed a special budget of up to about $6.6 billion, covering funding from this year to the end of 2031. The package would aim to finance 210,000 uncrewed systems, ranging from coastal surveillance and attack drones to uncrewed suicide boats. The ruling Democratic Progressive Party says providing the funding upfront provides stability for suppliers.
行政院版它是一次编列，逐年采购执行，这样子才能让业者愿意投资建制产线。我们要的不只是大单，而且是长单。
The main opposition Kuomintang has proposed spending around $7.5 billion over 6 years, with $1.2 billion allocated through the annual general budget, allowing the legislature to review and oversee the spending every year. The KMT says that special budgets should not become the norm. The smaller Taiwan People's Party has also raised concerns following recent controversies over military contractors reportedly using Chinese-made components.
我们的国防部也口口声声说要打造非红的供应链，但问题是，为什么相关的弊案层出不穷？
China dominates the global drone industry, but Taiwan has been working with democratic partners to build a supply chain of its own, as it faces increasing military pressure from China. The military says it is no longer working with the contractor accused of concealing China-made parts in its drones. But some experts say the case highlights challenges in verifying the origin of components used in Taiwan's drone supply chain.
那谁来执行所谓的第三方验证？这件事情其实在前面就要做，而不是到后面验收才执行。我觉得这个是目前台湾，我觉得不管是业者，不管是政府，都应该要尽快去处理的。
The bill is still under cross-party negotiations. But with no consensus in sight, it could be tricky for a final vote to pass the legislature on Friday. Fu Huahong and Anna Lu for TaiwanPlus.
The premier has blocked amendments to the country's Radio and Television Act. The opposition-held legislature passed the bill earlier this month, relaxing restrictions that ban the government, military, political parties, and their affiliates from investing in cable TV operators. A cabinet spokesperson says the changes could be unconstitutional. This is the 8th bill the premier has blocked since December by refusing to countersign, an approach that had never been used before. The U.S. has expanded sanctions meant to hit Iran's economy, telling countries to sever business ties with Tehran. U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent said countries that continue to do business could be forced out of the U.S.-based financial system. China is the biggest buyer of Iran's oil. Some experts say Washington is concerned about retaliation from Beijing if Chinese banks become targets of the new sanctions, with the two countries' leaders set to meet next month. As Ukraine marks 35 years of independence, Russia's invasion of the country shows no signs of losing steam. Despite pledges of help from the UK and France, for those on the front lines, independence still seems like something to be won. John Van Trieste reports.
35 years to the day since Ukraine gained independence from the Soviet Union, it's a slow, solemn march through the streets of Kyiv. Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky and his wife Olena follow a military honor guard. Their destination, a wall commemorating those who've died in Ukraine's 4.5-year fight against Russia's invasion. And Zelensky's message to the Ukrainian people this Independence Day is sharply defiant, calling out Russia's President Vladimir Putin.
Ви хотіли забрати всю нашу.
You wanted to take all of Ukraine, all our land. Instead, you've lost your oil refineries, your navy, your profits, and an entire generation that you sent to the slaughter. You wanted us to disappear from the map. Now you're off the international agenda for the future civilization.
As Zelensky says, Ukraine is bringing the fight deep into Russian territory. On Monday, this burning Russian warehouse could be seen from space. And Russian officials say Ukrainian drones also killed 3 teenagers in an attack in southern Russia Monday. But Russia's own often deadly strikes on Ukraine civilians aren't letting up. And more could be coming as Ukrainian reserves of missile interceptors run low.
Good morning, Prime Minister.
Ukraine hopes allies like UK Prime Minister Andy Burnham can help. The UK, along with France, has pledged to deliver defense missiles faster, a substitute for US hardware tied up in the Iran war. They're even giving Kyiv classified tech so it can make interceptors of its own. The Kremlin is highly displeased.
The Kremlin takes an extremely negative view of these plans. Britain is involved in this war. It is involved on the side of the Kyiv regime. Britain methodically and regularly adds fuel to the fire and methodically and regularly hatches schemes to prevent any progress whatsoever in the peaceful settlement process. This is precisely what the UK is doing.
But Burnham says whatever the rhetoric from Moscow, it's time to get started on this project as a winter of more expected attacks approaches.
And despite Russia's outrageous threats to my country, we will continue our support for Ukraine's defense. I know you need more help to protect your skies and your civilians. I know how hard the winters have been and the need to be ready this year when the nights draw in.
The town of Druzhkivka is on the front lines, far from London, Paris, and even Kyiv and Moscow. Here, Independence Day is just another day of shelling, gunfire, and drones amid the ruins. Some of those deployed weren't even born when Ukraine gained independence, making this war seem just another stage in this country's long struggle.
Independence is still being fought for. We've been doing so since 2014, and we're still standing today. In my family, my father went to fight in 2014, and I was in 9th grade. And now it's my turn, so the fight continues.
With no plan for de-escalation on either side, this young soldier's words speak to how conflict echoes through Ukraine's years as the fight for its existence grinds on. Ryan Wu and John Van Trieste for TaiwanPlus.
A 2025 sustainability report from TSMC shows its average annual pay and benefits per employee was around $136,000 a year. Total pay includes base salary, allowances, bonuses, and profit sharing. For Taiwan production and engineering roles, the average annual pay was over $30,000 and $60,000 respectively. TSMC says a majority of its employees consider overall compensation to be fair. The chip giant employs over 90,000 workers globally. Scientists at Taiwanese universities have successfully launched 2 more research rockets, marking another win for Taiwan's space goals. Both rockets broke records, the largest solid propellant rocket launched by academia and the first liquid-fueled rocket independently developed by students in Taiwan. The sounding rockets are used to gather data and test critical systems in the real world. It comes after the successful test flight of the Taiwan Space Agency's domestically produced Maraho rocket. The launches are part of the agency's push to break into the space transportation supply chain. Relentless rains continue to batter Taiwan, forcing school and work closures and hundreds of thousands of dollars of agricultural damage. And with more rain and a typhoon forecast, the country's south and east are facing a dangerous week ahead. Reese Ayers reports.
A car dangles precariously over a steep mountain slope in Tainan. The road beneath it almost completely swept away by the rain. Its driver lucky to escape. Elsewhere, a boat has been brought in to rescue an older person from their home, stranded by murky waters. Taiwan is struggling to cope with the constant downpour. Days of persistent rainfall are causing widespread flooding and damage across much of the country. Classes and work are cancelled for districts across the south and east as yet more rain is forecast, on top of already record-breaking rains.
在南子区的高雄站，这个是破了历史的记录，测达 567毫米，那累计3天的降雨量是913毫米。
In Yunlin in central Taiwan, farmers rush to harvest vegetables before they drown in floodwaters. Taiwan's agriculture ministry estimates damages to crops and livestock has already exceeded $300,000. With more rain and a typhoon expected later in the week, people across the country are doing what they can to deal with the damage and prepare for more. John Su and Rhys says for TaiwanPlus.
A major fire broke out on Monday night at a historic Taipei temple dating back to 1890. Dozens of fire engines and more than 100 firefighters spent around 4 hours extinguishing the flames at Jinan Temple. No injuries were reported, and investigators are still probing the cause. Taipei Mayor Jiang Wan-an says the city government will help speed up the restoration process. The site is a Taoist temple in the mountains in southeastern Taipei. Footage of Chinese cabbages being soaked in formaldehyde is spreading online, sparking concern about food imports in Taiwan. Food safety officials say Taiwan does not allow cabbage imports from China and that there are no records of Chinese cabbage entering the country. However, members of the public have also raised concerns over pickled cabbage imports from South Korea, much of which is made using Chinese cabbage. Officials say that according to Korean records, no products made with these cabbages have been exported to Taiwan. Food safety officials say they'll tighten testing of imports. A Thai Buddhist monk has become a viral sensation thanks to a pack of temple dogs that now follow him everywhere. Bryn Thomas reports.
A Buddhist monk cruises down Thailand's Chao Phraya River on a long-tailed boat. His daily alms collection, an otherwise common sight in rural Thailand, if not for the crew of canines in tow. What began as a single abandoned temple dog is now a beloved spectacle in Pathum Thani.
It started because people abandoned dogs here. Originally, there was only one. Then they bred, and people kept dropping off more, so we just kept taking care of them. Now they follow me everywhere because we normally sleep in the same room, and when I get up in the morning to go on the alms round, they bark and follow along. So they've been following me ever since.
The giving of alms has been practiced since the Sukhothai period, around 700 years ago, in what is now Thailand. The daily practice allows lay people to gain merit by offering alms, often prepared food to monks, who, under Theravada Buddhist tradition, do not handle money or cook for themselves.
The first time I came to make offerings, I saw Luampur leading the dogs onto the boat. Oh wow, they walked in a line. It was so adorable. After I made my offering, I was waiting to give the offering dedicated to the monks. And Luampur came back around again. Then the dogs jumped back onto the boat in such an orderly and cute way. It just felt good. It really healed my heart.
Local worshippers say the doggos have added meaning to their daily act of making offerings.
Right now, there are so many stressful things. The economy, wars, the global situation. But just waking up and coming to see Luangpor and the dogs boarding the boat with him, it lifts my heart. It gives me the strength to get through all the difficulties, the strength to work and get through each day.
The abbot and his dogs are making waves beyond the Chao Phraya, going viral with many on social media asking, what happens if one falls overboard?
There have been a couple of times they were playing and fell into the water. They were just playing around and teasing one another, but they can swim.
About a dozen of Abbot Chamnan's 20 or so temple dogs join his morning alms route, helping to keep ancient traditions alive and bringing moments of pause to worshippers along the way. Leon and Bryn Thomas for TaiwanPlus.
Thank you for watching What's Up Taiwan. Finally today, we take a sneak peek at Putri, Taipei Zoo's newborn tapir. I'm Tiffany Wong. Take care and see you next time.